The 1998 TVR Speed 12 needs no introduction. Its mere presence is enough to let you know that it means business. The most powerful road car ever built, that was the claim of TVR when they unveiled this beast back in the 1996 Birmingham Motor Show. Built as a race car first, road car second, the then codenamed 7/12ths concept grabbed everyone's attention, with its outrageous styling, which was necessary to keep the race car on the blacktop and keep its heart beating. Said heart is a 7.7-litre V12 engine, made by coupling two Speed 6-cylinder power plants on one crankshaft. 807 horses coupled to a 950-kilogram chassis, which can be further lightened to an insane 847 kilos with the racing modification applied. And this power is represented very well in game, since it is nearly impossible to drive reliably on its stock settings, as the physics of this 23-year-old PlayStation 1 game aren't the greatest. But that's why I'm here to show you how you can turn this car from a wet bar of soap on a slippery bathroom floor, that resists any and all attempts at being picked up, to a monstrous beast, that isn't only used to grind for the big red thing found in the special section of the Suzuki dealership. But before we go any further, I would not like to give a shout out to the Purple Guy 123 and Sliffentum, for definitely not inspiring me to make this guide, and you should also totally not check them out, since they totally don't make any awesome and funny videos. Since this is an old game, you'd think that it doesn't support analog inputs, but that's not the case. But, since this is an old game, there are some issues regarding key mapping, so in order to have any decent throttle input, you are forced to use the same analog stick for both acceleration and braking, meaning you can't do fancy left foot braking, unless you switch back to the face buttons and have zero throttle control besides on or off. With that being said, if you're running the manual transmission, you shouldn't be in too much of trouble, since you can always shift up to reduce the wheel spin, but if you're playing on your phone, like I've done for a few years, there isn't any convenient way to use the manual transmission in this game, so you just have to pray and tap the throttle button in low speed turns or after you inevitably lose control and spin out. But don't worry, since you have over 800 ponies under the bonnet at your disposal, once you reach a straight or a fast section of corners, you can get back all of the lost time without much issue. Just be careful not to carry too much speed, since after a straight, fast section there usually tends to be a slow section, so keep in mind that you've some very strong brakes, even though they might feel a bit weak at first, since you're going really fucking quick, and might miss a braking point, and spin out once more. If you're using a manual, try to keep your car in third gear on slow corners if and only if you're not taking part in an endurance event or you're using the analog stick for acceleration and braking, since you most likely won't be bringing super softs, so for those corners, fourth gear is go, unless you've gotten your grips with how the car handles and how lucky are you feeling today. Once you've cleared the corner, and feel like the car won't veer out of control into the nearest wall, hit the gas and enjoy the sweet cocktail that is the scream of the engine and its acceleration. In all actuality, the car is pretty understeer. Why? Since it does have a really long front end with the big engine, so keep in mind that sometimes you can use your throttle to drift your car around a corner, but that doesn't happen very often, and most of the time, it ends up with you spinning out. However, we can try to amend this flaw by tweaking the car's settings a little. First and foremost, we need to lower the spring rate of the suspension to 9.5 in the front and 7.5 in the rear. For ride height, we will drop it down to 95 on both ends, since the curbs and elevation changes can be quite rough on some circuits, which might upset the car, so we won't go down to the lowest setting, and we definitely won't have this as a rally car, so we are not keeping the stock ride height setting. For the dampers, if you want to keep the car more stable, keep the bounce stiffness at 7 or 8 in both the front and the rear, but drop the rebound stiffness to 4 on both the front and the rear. but from my experience, I've found that the car tends to be more active if keep the front bound and rebound stiffness both at 7 and the rear bound and rebound stiffness both at 4. For camber, feel free to keep it stock, same for the toe. The stabilizers, I bump both of them up to 4. For gearing, I use the auto setup option and drop it down to 20. Downforce I put on the maximum setting, since this isn't Forza, and if you want to have the best time possible with this car, since you've probably put the racing modification on. Unless you wanted to just drop the weight as much as possible and run the car as if it was the road car, you can decrease the aero down to 0.40 on the front and 0.63 at the back, which is the stock aero figure of the road car. For the differential, you can keep it stock. However, if you want to have more fun around slower corners, put the initial setting up to 28 and the deceleration setting up to 42. Keep the acceleration setting at the stock level. Not much else can be done, apart from slapping some super softs on this bad boy, since tires only degrade in endurance races. If you plan on doing what few of those you can enter this car in, I'd suggest having medium in the front and hard on the rear, as soft tires in the front will give you too much grip and might cause you to oversteer when your tires become more worn, whereas with the mediums, such problems don't occur from my testing. And that's it. This car is worth every second of tuning, as it is the one of the best and one of the fastest cars in the game. Now that your rocket is ready, go grind a few more of them for that big red thing from the special section in the Suzuki dealership, but now you know that this monster isn't just good for grinding, but for racing as well. Goodbye and thank you for watching.